Hey everyone, this is Ben with RegisteredNurseRN.com, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how to prepare for exams in college or nursing school. And we've been doing a series on our channel about how to study with a lot of different study tips, and so now I'm going to tell you how you can go into the exam prepared. I'm going to do another video after this video talking about some actual strategies for when you're taking the test, of how to eliminate answers, how to save time, and so forth. So you want to check that out because those tips really help me out. But now I'm going to talk about what to do leading up to the exam and on the exam day, of how you can go into it prepared. So number one, you always want to study over time for the more difficult classes, and you want to avoid any kind of cramming. Now, I'm not totally against cramming. I think cramming is great even when you do study over time, because it helps you get in that last minute information into your head. And it's also, I've crammed for classes I didn't really care much for, like for example, Intro to Sociology or something like that, where we just had some PowerPoint notes and I just had to learn basic concepts. I wouldn't give too much study time to those classes, and I would just mostly cram. But when you're taking those difficult classes, you do want to study over time. And you want to implement all these tips that we've been giving you in the videos. For example, you want to stay organized. You want to be having a planner out, allocating time to study and keeping up with assignments and so forth, so that'll help you stay organized. You want to be rewriting your notes, making flashcards, practicing rote memorization by saying your notes aloud and things like that, repracticing diagrams. Find out what kind of learner type you are. We've talked about the auditory learners, kinetic learners, read-write learners, and so forth. So find out the best strategies you can to study. And then of course you want to practice any kind of tests, like if you have a study guide, it comes with a test bank of questions, or some professors will actually hand out copies of their old tests or give you a review guide. So always get your hands on that and begin to study as far off as you can, a little by little each day. Allocate some time. Next, you want to prioritize those hard classes that really make a big difference in your GPA and a big difference for nursing school or whatever college major you are. You want to prioritize those classes, give the most study time to those, and give less study time to the classes that you know are easy, or that you don't have to have a certain grade in that class in order to advance in your major and so forth. Number three, you always want to crack down about 2 or 3 days before the exam, and that's when you step up your game. You study for 2 or 3 extra hours than you would for, say, just a regular study day. And you want to concentrate all of your efforts into those classes. If you have maybe 1 or 2 exams coming up, you'll have to divide your time, but give as much concentration you can 2 to 3 days out, and that's when you really start to hunker down. Now, on the exam day, the day before the exam, that's when you really want to get serious. You want to just devote yourself to as much study time as you can that day. Block out everything else. You may even have to put off assignments or anything else if you have a really difficult exam coming up, and just tell people, I don't have time to hang out. Turn off the cell phone, do whatever you have to do, but just hunker down and just study like crazy that day before the exam, especially for those really hard classes, and especially if it's maybe the first exam in the semester, because you want to go into it strong. Now, here's a tip that I would use whenever I had a class and I would have an exam, like say I had an 8:15 class and I had to wake up and just go straight and take the exam. I would notice that whenever I would study the day before, I would understand things pretty well, but then I would go to sleep, I would wake up, and by the time I got to take the test, things were a little more fuzzy. I had difficulty remembering things, and I would notice this pattern with myself. And so I made a change in my study habits whenever I would have to get up early and take like an 8:15 or 9:15 or whatever class. I would go to bed a little earlier that night. I would study like crazy the day before, go to bed like 8, 9 o'clock if I could, and I would just try to force myself to do that. Then I would set my alarm clock really early. I would get up at say 3:30 or 4:30 a.m. in the morning, way ahead of time before class began. And I would get up and I would usually take a shower. That would help me wake up, and then I would eat a good breakfast, and doing those two things helped me feel like I was awake and alert. Then I would sit down and I would have 2 to 3 hours just to devote to studying, a little bit more extra cram time, just to really make sure those concepts were concrete in my head. Then I would go off to class, and I would usually do way better on the exams when I started implementing this strategy. And I would do that, after I learned this, I would do that all through college. And man, that really made a huge difference for me. So if you're able to pull this off, I think you'll probably notice that it does help quite a bit. Now, number 6, you always want to get some sleep the day before the exam. Like I said, you can get up earlier and go to bed a little earlier, but try to get a good night's sleep. Don't stay up partying or watching movies or whatever, because it will mess you up. All right, number 7, eat a good breakfast before you go. You want to eat something that's got good carbs, that will stick to your ribs, so to speak, and keep you from being hungry. Make sure it has carbs, sugar, and maybe a little protein. So, maybe eat some kind of bread or some rice or some oatmeal with maybe some fruit and maybe some nuts or almonds or something like that. Eat a good balanced breakfast to help you have good brain power for the exam. Number 8, you want to get there early and you want to have your notes out. And what I would usually do, I talked about taking notes and how I would staple them together once I would get like all my notes for like exam 1 or exam 2. I would staple that packet together, and that would be my little study packet. And I would literally walk to class with these notes in my hand, and I would be studying these notes as I was waiting in the hallway for the door to be unlocked or for the other class to leave. And then I would go and I would sit down and I would be getting every last minute of studying I can with these notes. And then once I took the test, it was just so fresh on my mind. I did so much better. Next, you want to chew gum, and some people say that chewing gum really helps them concentrate. I know the great NBA basketball player Michael Jordan, he would chew gum all the time, and he said it helped him concentrate. So when you're taking an exam, if you're chewing gum, it's going to keep your mouth moist. It's going to keep you from thinking about hunger or anything like that, and it just helps you concentrate a little better. Some professors may not want you chewing gum, so if they don't, you can't do that, but that can help. Number 10, you always want to bring all of your supplies with you to your exams. And what I mean, take your backpack or book bag with your textbook, with your notes and your folder that contains all of your assignments and your syllabus. Take extra pens, pencils, eraser, your calculator, any supplies you may possibly conceivably need on this exam. Make sure to take that. And I'm going to tell you about a quick anecdote of why I learned this the hard way. I had a class one time and the teacher didn't say anything about using our book on the exam. Okay, I just thought it was just going to be a typical exam. So I went there and I left my textbook at home because I was like, I don't want to lug this big textbook around, walk all over campus with this thing. It's just an exam day. We won't be doing lectures or anything, so I'm just going to leave the book at home. Well, we get there and guess what? The teacher is like, okay, for the first 20 minutes, I'm going to let you do an open book exam and then you'll have to close it and complete the exam without that. I could have died. I'm like, why did I not bring my book? So it's always important. You never know if a teacher at the last minute is going to give you some help with notes or with your textbook. So always bring those supplies to class. And then number 11, always wear a watch. And I would like to wear a wristwatch because even though most classrooms will have a clock somewhere, I would find that it was just so much easier while I was taking the test just to glance down and look at my watch. That way I kept track of time. I knew exactly how much time I had left, and I could kind of estimate how many questions I had left and how, if I was going quickly enough and so forth. So I would definitely recommend you have some way of keeping up with time. Okay, so those are some tips on how you can prepare for the exam and go into it with a strategy in place. Now, I'm going to make another video, like I said, talking about how you can actually use some strategies when you're taking the test, eliminate answers, mark questions that you're not sure about, and so forth. I'm going to tell you how I did that. So stay tuned for that video. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to our channel.